Yeah, it sure is. Wow, that was loud. All right, so um, here we go. Just like yesterday, I was showing you guys like where sort of where Rhino ends and Revit begins, or vice versa, right? And so some of you have been telling me like you're going to put windows in the openings in your Rhino inside of Revit. That's not so easy because to put windows or doors in with Revit, it wants a Revit wall, and then it basically places and cuts and trims everything for you. So if you have an opening like this and you just want to put a glass plane in it, I recommend doing that in Rhino, and then saving Revit walls for things that are much more standard. There is a way where you can bring the Rhino model in, you import it rather than or insert it rather than link it, and then you can start to create walls from faces. But you've already given these things depth in Rhino. You've already kind of done that already in Rhino, so it's probably a little redundant. And it's not so easy to make custom windows like this that sort of turn a corner and go down, right? That's Rhino's cup of tea, not Revit's. You have to almost fool Revit into doing that because it just doesn't want to because it just likes the standard. It likes the vanilla. Um, let's see. So, but with that in mind, again, that thinking about how that works with what do you say with Revit, again, you have all those standard kit of parts, those pieces and architectural components, you might say, that make this really easy then to start to add things like plumbing fixtures, etc. Right? One of the things that we haven't talked about yet, but that we will today is talking about putting toilets in the building. That's usually based off of use and occupancy, like how many you're supposed to have per code. And we could go through that. It kind of depends, but I just doing the math in my head, you're perfectly fine if you have, let's see, one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight single occupancy lockable toilet rooms, right? So what that does is that prevents when you have something that doesn't need as many toilets and you then put men's and women's restrooms, and then you have to like decide, well, do you stagger them by floor? And it just gets really odd. So my advice is just to have some lockable single use toilets in this case for our program. And then you can distribute them among the floors so that you don't have to like if your significant other has to use the restroom, you don't have to like find the stairs and go downstairs and then wait outside while he or she does their business, etc. Right? So but to have those things really handy. And oftentimes we'll put them by the core, right? So we have an elevator core here. This is where people move up and down. Um, Typically, when we can, we stack restrooms, toilets, bathrooms, sinks, things like that, because you have to have supply water that moves up and down, and you have to have sewage that moves down. Sewage has to move down. When it has to move laterally, then to go down, let's say it's in a cantilever or something, then you have to have a slope to it because sewage is not always liquid, right? So we understand this that sewage, the more you can sort of stack things up so things can just go down and use gravity, the better. Otherwise, what happens when you have to run, let's say, toilet sewage out? Laterally is it has to be sloped and it has to be sloped considerably and over a certain length, then you really start to increase the floor to ceiling sort of sandwich, as we call it, right? That distance. And what that means is that if you start to add inches or even feet to that dimension, then you're significantly multiplying the amount of envelope on the outside of the building, right? The surface area. And that has implications for budgets, materials, waste, et cetera. So that's why we try to stack these things up, right? It's not I think it's pretty obvious once you start to see it. That's why we sort of consolidate things and centralize things and then let things stack the way they need to. All right. So with that said, let's talk about how we might do this. I'm not saying that this is a great placement for my elevator. It looks sort of like it's sticking out and out of place. I need to sort of fix that if this was my project and I wanted to have a nice building. But I'm just going to go along with this and quickly just sort of take what I have and continue with it. So I have what looks like an 8-inch concrete basic wall. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to simply continue that on. So I'm going to go to architecture, wall. Let's see, wall architectural. There we are. It says finish face interior. And maybe I will say, instead of that, I'll say finish face exterior. And I'll start to draw out from the wall that I have already. I can go around this column and include that column in my wall. I'm just going to go out to here and sort of try to line things up as much as I can here. I'm not sure why this isn't IntelliSense and letting me connect that up. It wants to go perpendicular. Come on, dude. Seriously? There we go. And what I want is for this to be perpendicular. But you can see that it actually goes around and does this with the walls. So what's interesting here is that the concrete wall, it just sort of goes around in this column and it just sort of cuts through. It doesn't really take into consideration the column here. So I'm just going to undo this. And I'm going to show you what it looks like when you do, let's say, not an 8-inch concrete wall. I don't think our restrooms have to have 8-inch concrete walls in them. In fact, I would say it'd be easier to run plumbing and water supply up and down them if in the walls if we had something a little less thick and solid. So I'm going to go back to my walls and let's pick. Let's see. I'm not going to get too into this. Maybe I'll just pick a 6-inch generic wall, thinking that we can start to run some of the systems inside the wall here. Let's go ahead and just going to go around this column. Again, I don't know why it won't let me snap the way I want there. That's kind of weird, but it is what it is. And let's see. This wall versus this wall. It's not giving me the dimension, of course. Okay, whatever. But at any rate, it's close enough for government work. Here we go. I can also, again, looking at this column, I can do a wall around this column. Let's see. 6-inch generic. Let me just go to the inside face, I guess. Let's see. So when I'm drawing this line for the wall, I can always change, interior, exterior, or center line, which is handy, right? I might add. And now when I start to click these things together, it starts to close things in. So if I wanted to actually build the wall around this column and enclose this column, I can do that. I can select this wall. Let me pull this back. Come on now, oh, here it is, sorry. Control Z. I have to find the handle here. There we are. It's asking me, where do I want to place this wall? All right. I can send this one back a little bit. Let's see here. There we go. And then I could basically draw a wall around this column if I need to. I might have some goofiness here. Look at that. Okay. Gee, thanks. That's really helpful. So what I'm going to do is just pull this one up to it. Let's see here. Try to anyway. There we are. And then I'm just selecting these things and pulling them back so that they actually make a little bit of sense here. All right, there we go. So here I have maybe a water closet. For whatever reason, this didn't connect up the way I would anticipate connecting. Maybe I just need to bring that to the center line. Okay, it's just going to be a jerk to me. Let's see. But I guess it is two different types of walls here. Here we have a concrete wall. Here we have something probably metal studs and some gypboard and condition for a wet space. Okay, let's start adding some things here. If I go to insert component, place component, right? Then I go to my properties. I can start to search for things that I already have. Let's look and see if I already have a toilet. And I do not. Let's see if I have a sink. I have a countertop with a sink. I have a kitchen sink. I have, so not a public restroom sink. And let's go with like paper towel dispenser. Yeah, none of those. Right. So what I'm going to need to do is similar to what we did with the elevators yesterday. I need to go to manage. Sorry, I guess it's insert, load Autodesk family. This is going to take me to all the generic Autodesk families that I can borrow from here. And let's start. I just type in restroom and see what kinds of things pop up here that might be uh, restrooms, bathrooms, water closets. I really don't want to have to search for all these things over and over again. All right, so we have toilets here. Okay, great. Toilets commercial versus domestic. Uh, yeah, okay. And I'm going to pick, I guess I'll just pick this one. I don't really care so much as long as it looks like in plan that I have these. I'll go ahead and load that one. And I'm going to, sorry, go back to insert, load Autodesk family, and I'll keep searching here. Let's see, sink. And I'll actually look for an actual, not a kitchen sink, but something that actually works for a commercial bathroom, washroom, counter sink, countertop sink, countertop sink, countertop sink, kitchen sink, sink mop. You can, if you have a generous closet, you can put a mop sink in. Sink vanity square. Yeah, I'll just do this. I'm kind of don't care anymore. There we go. Load. Oh wait, no, that one's a vanity. Never mind. I'll load this one. All right. Let's see. Load Autodesk family. Let's see. Paper towel. Dispenser, paper towel. Okay. Um, download that one. Probably a toilet paper dispenser. Toilet paper. No, I guess not. Okay. Well, anyway, that's something we'd have to find. We're not going to do interior elevation, so I'm not too concerned there. Maybe a waste basket or waste paper waste basket. Let's see. Basect basket. There we go. Waste. Floor drains, waste basket. There we are. Okay, let's just do that. Okay, so what we can do then is go to architecture component, place component, right? I just want you guys to get into the habit of doing this. And I can start to place this stuff inside. And then I can also, okay, that one wastebasket is just fine. There we go. I'm not sure why it's not showing up here on level one. Offset from host, it's supposed to be on level one. Why is it not showing? Okay, it's selected. So let me just see what's going on here. So sometimes this happens, and Revit's kind of, overly complex. You'll see a lot of, if Dan shows us today in the afternoon, you'll see some pretty interesting Revit models. But if I just go out to the floor plan properties and go to visibility graphics, and it told me that wastebasket was part of the furniture. Let's see. So if I say projection surface, override, I'll just say solid line, color black, weight, I'll just say 1. I don't want it to be. Let's see if this actually makes it pop up or not. Oy, all right. It shouldn't be cut, but let me just do this as well. Furniture systems, let me try that one as well. Golly, I could have sworn it said furniture, and I don't understand why it's not showing up here. Oh, well. I thought maybe it'd be great to add a waste paper basket, but apparently that's not happening. In fact, I don't even see it anymore. Okay, anyway, let's go to the next one, component, place component. Seems like toilet, water closet seems pretty important. Um, there we go. And I believe, okay, it's going to do this. So I'm going to have to place it in here. Why is it not showing this to me when I place this in here? Okay, let me just look at my floor plan. Crop region visible, crop view, view range, cut plane, bottom, unlimited. Okay, well, I don't know why mine is not showing. That's going to make it difficult to actually. Let me just move my level 2 and see if I have the same problem here. I made these walls. I didn't actually say they go up to any sort of level. Let's see. I'll send them up to level 5. Oops. That was the bottom, not the top. That's not good. You ever have one of those weeks where you're just like, oh my goodness, why did I get out of bed? Let's see. I have a little bit of a glitch there with the wall, but I can fix that later. Let's make that the base constraints to level 1. I'll make these up to level 5. That way I have them in each floor plan at the moment. Same thing here. I'll just again hit apply. All right. And I'm just on level 2. Let me see if I have maybe, I don't know what's going on. Maybe it'll show up here. There we go. It's actually showing up and not disappearing. I don't know why my level 1 is. I don't really care at the moment. But I am going to rotate this dude around so that it'll actually be kind of flush with our wall. Move it somewhere. Um, Maybe I move it over here and then I have a door swing over here. Let's see. Architecture door, right? So getting in the habit of just doing these things. Um, Again, when you want to place a door or window in Revit, it really wants to uh, it really wants a Revit wall. So when we made these Revit walls for around the restroom, there you have it. Let's see here. What else? Sink. Yes, that would help. Let's go to component, place component. And again, you really only have to do this once and design the perfect little single occupancy washroom. And then afterwards, you're all good. Let's see, basin, sink, sink, sink. I swore I loaded a sink that doesn't require a domestic kitchen countertop. Let's see. They call it basin. What would you call it? Most recently used types. Toilet commercial, elevator door center, wastebasket, water closet. Well, go ahead and put my paper towel dispenser in, although it seems moot, considering that I don't have a sink. Yeah. Just makes a little alcove in the wall for it. Um, hmm. But anyway, this is how we can import these things into our good grief. It keeps clicking off every time okay, here we go. Let's see. Gosh, I really wish I could have just remembered what that was called or why it was labeled the way it was. Plug, rectangular, 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 reducer. All right. Here we have sink. More sinks than you ever care to know. Let me add a wastebasket here. Oh yeah, there, it's showing up in my level 2. Something is wrong with my level 1 floor plan, the way it's displaying furniture and other sorts of things, and I'll just have to fix that later. Let's see, what else? Let me just go back, I guess, to insert, and I try to be patient with Revit, but damn it, why is this taking so darn long? Oh, it's because this is in section. Oh, I see. Sync round 2D, sync produce, sync double sync, sync vanity square. See, that one's a vanity. What the crap? Sync for work. Let's just do that. There we go. 20 inch by something inch sync. Let me just move this around. Paper towel dispenser. It bugs me that I put it there. Let's see. Component. Paper dispenser, paper towel. There we go. We'll place it in here. We'll place our sink. I have several sinks in here. That's crazy. We'll place our sink here. Let's just rotate that around and move it against the wall. That would help, wouldn't it? There we are. And then we put a little waste paper basket right over here. Rotate that around. Not the greatest layout for a toilet room, but you know, it is what it is. Yeah, there we are. Right. And so if I then basically flip this to the other side, I could easily make 2 toilet rooms. Maybe I need to center this elevator up a little better, create one on either side or something like that. Then everything sort of stacks second, third floor, fourth floor, etc. And you know, I can easily do that. I can sit there once I have all this laid out, hold down the control key, copy. Why won't it let me copy? Let's see. Should. There we go. Copy to clipboard. And then go to level 3 and do the same thing. So I could say paste to current view, paste to current view. Now we'll have plenty of places for people to do their business when they need to. All right. Each floor, I need to actually make that elevator door, right? So the way I picked how to do this is kind of strange, but it'll work. What I need to do on this, let's see, the 4th floor is, again, I need to put a architecture component, place component, elevator. Let's see, door center. Let's see, 48 by 84, same as before. See if I can center this up. 2 inches and 2 inches on either side. Perfect. On that level 1, the odd thing is that I'd probably put the doors over here, right? And then it would open up to the other direction. So I might actually change that. I'll select that door and delete it. Go to component, place component. Is this starting to make sense? Right. So Revit has very specific ways it does things. So I need to go to level 2. Again, I can place another elevator door in. Component. Come on. Component. Elevator door. Do the same thing over here. Right. Level 3, same thing. And again, I'm just looking at the cues and making sure that I have this thing centered if I want to, right? Seems like a pretty good idea. All right. So as you can see, it's building this for me as I go. All right. So I just wanted to show that, right? That's something that we never really talked about. And but you know, what I see here is actually quite a bit of wasted room. This is what, level 3? Let me just put a door in. Yeah, let's just do this. Put the door in. Let's have it swing the other way. That way, if somebody opens the door, you're not staring at the toilet, but you can see the sink. There we go. But it still looks like there's quite a bit of space in here. And that's fine. I mean, if we needed, if you think about somebody perhaps in a wheelchair or somebody that needs more space, that's perfectly fine. You could also put a baby changing table in here. That could be helpful. Thinking about the day-to-day business for, families or anybody that might actually be going to the museum, right? So anyway, some things to think about there. But once you get the perfect one done, you can just basically stamp it, copy and paste it floor to floor as you need to. And like I said, I think you just need eight sort of uh, single use or single occupancy toilets, and you're fine for our program and our occupancy here. Just the back of the envelope, sort of in the back of my head. Um, we're not going to have hundreds of people in this at any given time. So, um, with that in mind, we can interpolate what our needs would be. Um, All right. So again, if I was doing this for realsies, I would keep putting my modules in Rhino, making sure that they insert in correctly and link in here correctly in Revit. I would put another stair here for, again, this would be a really long dead end corridor. Otherwise, I would put the stair on this end. To me, I think that's the question then turns into, what is the relationship between these and in the spine and in the circulation? So again, you want to make some good decisions and sort of see what they look like. I'm not so happy with what I have right now. Like this roof looks a little clunky. It definitely looks a little clunky. I might try to actually, I've lifted these up off the ground. I might actually try to say maybe we just bury all those power lines and then have these things cantilever over the sidewalk a little bit, give ourselves a little more room here. But at any rate, there's ways of thinking about this. I think some of you, I've seen a number of you sort of use like a sort of larger roof plane over top of the whole complex. And now that I look at my green roof here, like that little green plane, looking at like a more heroic sort of roof that extends outwards, maybe covers a lot of things, that I would actually consider that at this point, although I wouldn't want to cover up some of the top lighting I'm doing here. So I'd want to work around that. But anyway, you can sort of see how this works. Now I'd have to adjust my roof to then cover up, the rest of the core. I don't think the bathroom core needs to go up into the past the roof. Um, and let's see. Again, I showed a little bit about curtain walls earlier. I showed stairs, doors. Right. So at any rate, you can sort of see how these things work and in Revit, which I think is important. Really importantly is that as you go, right, you're generating the floor plans. In fact, you're working in the floor plans and sections as you continue to model, right? Here's the section, your A section. Let's say this section isn't taken the right where I want it. I can always go to level 1, remember, and I can go to view. I can cut a section anywhere I want. View, go to the section tool, and I can put a section call out. And let's say I want to make a section through my elevator and core. Let's say I want to also make a section, view, section. Let's make one through here in the staircase, through one of my light vessels in the staircase. Each time I do that, it's creating a new section. I now have a section, in addition to section 1, I have a section 2 and a section 3. There's a section 2. Yeah, let's save it, sure. As you can see, it's actually cutting through the elevator shaft. And I can see this beyond an elevation. Section 3, it's cutting through my light vessel and my stairs. And you can see it's quite literally cutting through a portion of my stairs. So it's that's kind of a funny section. But yeah. Some other things here, like I'm noticing in section, right? And that's kind of the nice thing about seeing this, is that what you can see is that this is just a massive cantilever. That's completely impractical. It wouldn't work that way. One of the things I did is I stunted my my steel grid to just the spine. But what I think I would really also need to do is create a little bit of a plinth or platform of steel underneath these things to hold them up. So if I went to, let's say, level 1, I could do that. Um, let's see here. There's a steel beam or steel column right here. And I could, again, add these things as I go. Structure, column. And the more you do this, again, the better practice you get, the more it makes sense. Vertical column, let's see, rotate after placement. Height is the top. Let's see, the bottom is unconnected height, unconnected. Let's go to level 2. And I'm placing them on level 1. So I'm going to do this. 27 degrees. All right, there we go. And I'll do the same thing over here. I didn't draw a column grid line. I probably could have done that, made my life a little easier, as you remember. But I'm just going to do this really quickly for time's sake. You can see in 3D view, I've added columns. And now, if I think about this just for a moment, let me just draw on this really quickly. Right? I'm going to have some beefy beams here. This span, that's like 40 feet. So I'm going to have a pretty deep dude going along here, pretty deep dude going along here, and then shorter ones going in this direction. Right? And uh, and so I could actually do that if I really felt the need to. And I guess I will. I'm just a glutton for punishment. That's holding up level 2, so I'll go to level 2. And let me just, for the sake of doing this, I'll do it right now. Let's see. I already have a beam going across here. I need one going across here. Let's see here. Beam to beam, beamerson. Let's do a nice 36-inch deep beam. Let me just go to level 1. I'll put it on level 1 and then I'll switch to level 2. It really should go to this. Let's see. There's that. And it's on work plane level 1. And why won't it let me do level 2? I don't know. Let's try copying. And I'll go to level 2 and just paste it instead. Paste to current view. All right. Let's see what I have here. There's a big beam. That is one BAB. Yeah, that dude's huge. Look at that. All right. And then what I would do is I put, or sorry, that's actually the wrong direction for, I'm actually going to make that much smaller. I'll make that an 18 by 40. Let's do that. I meant to put the beam in this direction. I should do that. Oy. All right. The big dudes. Anyway, I could go through here and start to add more, right? But I digress. Here we go. Does that help a little bit? I mean, Revit sort of, again, it's not the most helpful design tool, but when it comes to like, putting in all the meat and potatoes that's required, to make this an actual building, it's quite useful, right? And in fact, when it comes to automating then the sort of generation of plans and sections and elevations, it's doing all that stuff automatically. You can toggle back and forth between them as you go, and you're starting to generate some really nice drawings, right? That can be exported with line weights and further cleaned up, etc. Right? So I'm going to shift gears now and just touch a little bit on Twinmotion for the next probably 50 minutes or so, and then tomorrow we can really go into some more in depth with Twinmotion. But what I want to do is show you guys this as a rendering engine. Let me just, do we need to set up the bathroom for ADA? I think it needs 18-inch clearance at the full side of the door. Yeah, so yes, probably. What you could do is you could have, let's say if you had 2 toilet rooms on either side, like on each floor, then you could do one that's ADA compliant, or you could do both, right? Depending on how much room you have. It's a good question, Gene. Good point. Um, Let's see here. I have a real Frankenstein of a building here. Boy, this isn't this isn't the prettiest looking thing in the universe, that's for sure. But let's see, what else would I do here? Oh, Twinmotion. Sorry, I lost track of what I was doing. Um, so I will say this: I'm running my situation's a little different than probably yours, in that I'm running Revit on Windows through Parallels. So I'm running a second operating system on MacBook Pro, and so I don't have Twinmotion on the Windows side. I have it on the Mac OS side, but I have Revit on the Windows side. For whatever reason, when you load up Twinmotion, it needs to see the graphics card, and my Parallels doesn't allow Windows to see my graphics card through the app. So I have to use the Mac OS version of Twinmotion. The only reason I'm saying this is because if I go to let's say what is it, View, or yeah, View, you'll see that there's a Twinmotion button here. I can actually just sort of, if I'm logged into Revit and I'm logged into Twinmotion, I can with one button sort of migrate my model over to Twinmotion. And it works really nice, and you can have it auto sync, etc. But unfortunately, that doesn't work for me because I'm running on two different operating systems, I think anyway. Looks like your system doesn't meet the minimum requirements because I don't have Twinmotion on Windows. Revit's telling me to go to hell. I hate it when it does that. Damn you, Revit. So I have to do something a little different. But if you are running these things both on Windows, on a PC, you should be just fine. You can open up in Twinmotion, and I think it opens up Twinmotion or Unreal Engine on your browser. You log in, and it can sync things up for you, which is really nice. Keeps the scale the same, etc. Unfortunately, I think what I'm going to have to do is export a specific file type out and then import a specific file in. I wonder if this could work with Datasmith. Let's see if it works with Datasmith. Allow. And I'm going to put this, okay, that works. I'm going to go ahead and save this Datasmith file and see if that works for me. If not, I'll have to do an OBJ or something like that, which is kind of clunky and a pain in the rear, to be honest, but it is what it is. And this is what Twinmotion looks like. Okay, so by default, Twinmotion is, first of all, a free rendering app. It's real-time render, but you can also set some settings and use some ray tracing, and then actually hit render and actually get even higher quality things out. Right now, it looks like we have a sphere with this goofy-looking marble shader. I'm just going to delete that, and it's on some sort of cylindrical platform, which I'm going to delete, and then it's on this stupid plinth right here, which I'm also going to delete. And what you can see is I basically just have like this sort of weird sand dune scape that we're working within. All right. What you can see is that you can bring in your models from Rhino or Revit. What you'll see is that, what do I keep saying what you'll see? Over here on the right, you have a scene browser, they call it a graph. And all of the stuff that you import in from Revit will show up here, and anything else that you add, objects, people, vegetation, etc., vehicles, things like that that you can add in later. Let's see here. As I select these things, I can see what's going on. Here's starting base and graphics. Here's the ground. Here's the landscape. I can select these things here and start to delete them away if I want to. Starting base, there's the graphics, yeah, level of detail, blah, 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 blah. I'm not really so concerned about that. If I go to ambience, up here in the scene, not only do I get like a graph with all my objects, but then I can start to change things like the environment, the camera, render settings, and any kinds of effects I want. So I could say a dynamic sky versus an HDRI sky. I can actually load in a high res definition, high res image of a sky if I wanted to. It actually maps it on a dome, basically a hemisphere, half of a sphere, basically. I'm just going to keep it as dynamic sky. I can tell where north is, the time of the day. Of course, it can get darker or brighter depending on what time that is. Appearance-wise, I can start to change the intensity of the sun. Location, I can actually give it my Um, my location is putting me in Paris, France right now, it looks like. But if I type in Las Vegas, inevitably it'll give me Las Vegas, Nevada, or Las Vegas, Venezuela, or Las Vegas, New Mexico. Yeah, I want the Las Vegas. Come on, let's go. Here we are. I can start to talk about the sky and actually add different qualities to it. Atmospheric density. I can change the seasons. I can add clouds, more or less. I can change the season. I can add wind. That's important when you put vegetation in. If you're doing an animation, the vegetation will start to sway. Flags will start to blow in the wind, fog, etc. Right? So there's more things here than you probably wanted to know. Um, and I'll say this about Twinmotion, right? If you're really into Twinmotion, you can get it to do some pretty sophisticated things. If you're not into Twinmotion, sometimes it looks a little uh, uncanny or like kind of Roblox-ish, like you know what I mean? Like it's not quite rendered, but it's kind of there. So anyway, I'll show you guys some things here for those that are interested in getting into Twinmotion because it does work directly with your Revit models if that's the way you're inclined to do. Last year, I had some folks that really wanted to try Twinmotion and they did a pretty interesting job with it. I had some people that were just like, they tried to do the Revit rendering. They're like, I hate the Revit rendering. They brought it into Rhino and they eventually just liked to render things in Rhino. So they brought all the Revit stuff back into Rhino. I don't really have a horse in this race except to make sure that you're trying things and that you start to develop your own workflow that you have a plan A and maybe even a plan B for at the end for what you want to get out of this and the quality that you get out. All right, so sorry, there's a little bit of interface here, but down at the bottom, there's things like import modeling materials, populate media and export. I'm going to go to import and I'm going to try to import my DataSmith file. Let's see. Your file's open. Let's see if I can find that DataSmith file I just made. There it is, uDataSmith. Couple of things here. I'm just going to double check and see if I need to do anything here. I'm not going to play around with this at all. Here's the direct link, right? So if it was a direct link, then if I start to make changes in Revit, they update inside of this. I'm just going to do a one-time import and hope it works. Fingers crossed. Missing file. Open new path. Why is it missing a file? What? Just hit OK. Like what missing file are you talking about? You can see that it's put my site in here and it's 2,000 feet up in the air. That's great because it's 2,000 feet below sea level. Isn't that just awesome? And I will tell you this, how you pan, orbit, look around with your mouse and your keyboard, completely different than Rhino and completely different than Revit. So like this is more like a gamer sort of system, like Q and E are up and down. I mean, I can't tell you how much this drives me crazy. Um, like, okay, so I think what I can do though is actually select some of these things. Let's see, select my site terrain, and I think I can actually just zoom in on them somehow. There's a keyboard shortcut, and I've forgotten what these things are. Maybe if I right click here and I say zoom to selection, there we go. All right, so you can see, oh, look at that. You can see I have several planes that are overlapping and it's having a hard time rendering them. Isn't that great? But instead of selecting things willy-nilly here and trying to make sure I select everything, what you can see is that I have things broken down into the layers and the types and families. So when you had layers in Rhino, you'll see them here. When you had families and Revit, you'll see them here. So I have things like walls, curtain walls. I have walls basic, concrete, walls basic, generic. I can start to select things as necessary. Here in the multi-lister, I have structural columns. I have floors, I have levels, railings, things that I've added here. They maintain their labels here. And let me just see structural framing. All right, so let me see, what do I have here? Site south, there we go. I'm just going to get rid of this ridiculous site limit. There we go. I'll just delete that. Okay. Get rid of that side limit plane that was doing that weird thing. All right. So you can see I have a real Frankenstein of a project here. I'm just going to try to move in and then zoom in where I can. Right mouse click is tumble or sort of dolly or orbit. Um, good grief, I hate this. It just doesn't feel quite as responsive. And you can see that I have a set of colors that are basically Revit added materials to concrete and things like that. You can see how inadequate Revit's shaders are. I mean, that looks terrible, right? Like that. I mean, as far as concrete goes, that just looks like a 1990s wallpaper like website, right? Um, I grew up like seeing the web like develop. People would put like these little animated GIFs and then and like wallpaper the whole thing, tile them across. It's so terrible. Anyway, so what I want to do is maybe begin to assign certain materials. I would steer clear of trying to go too far with this. Like I would just pick some things that look right. Um, and you don't have to do every nut and bolt. So like what's my rule for steel? If I have steel frame, maybe I'm just going to do like try to find a good aluminum or steel sort of shader. If I want it to sort of look like deserty, maybe I add quartz in steel. It's sort of that has that rusty patina that then protects the steel, but gives it that red look, like that warm colored desert look. If I'm just going to try to find a typical concrete shader, a nice one that doesn't sort of detract from everything. Um, what I can do is over here on the left-hand side of my library, I have materials, and that's, of course, I think what you would assume is where I could find certain shaders. But I also have other types like megascans that can also be useful. Those are other kinds of shaders and other sorts of assets, sometimes 3D assets. But I can do surfaces, and here I can find things like concrete, dirty, cast in place, in situ, slab, rough, smooth, painted, damaged, cast in situ. Here's cast in place. Here's concrete slab, cast in concrete. Yeah, so you can see that then it sort of renders these things. You can start to see how these things actually look. That one looks kind of nice. It's nice and bright. And what I'm going to do is oftentimes these are free, but you just have to download them. And if you don't have the download button, what that means is that you're not logged in. You want to make sure that you're logged in. And annoyingly, sometimes it doesn't keep you logged in. Freaking log me in, dude. This should be it right here. I don't know why it's not. Have I told you how much I think that this interface is kind of goofy? Let's see. What in the crap? Let's go. Sorry for the downtime. I'm just trying to get this to log me in. And it seems like that would be relatively easy, but for some reason it's not. Let's see here. This is where I need like background elevator music to like chime in and soothe my this is not good for my rage. Like, come on, dudes. I'm like smashing this button, it's not doing anything. I wonder what's going on here. Oh, here we go. File, sign into Epic Games. Like, yes, please. And that would be where exactly? Oh, sign in here. Yes, just do it, dude. Sign in. Sorry, I guess I had to sign in through. Oh, you're putting me in a pretty awkward position here, revealing just how ancient I am. Come on. No, I don't want to do two-factor authentication. There's no state secrets here. Yes, that's correct. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Confirm. Yes. 16 clicks away. Done linking, please. Okay, great. All of that just to all the times I hit this login now is it's hitting okay. Thank you. This is so helpful. I try not to blame these shitty tools, but sometimes they just are shitty. Hmm, man. All right. So anyway, now you can see that as I start to have shaders, I can actually download them. And then they will be down here in my materials box. So um, here, what I can do is I can, let's see, how does this work? Do I have to drag this over? Yeah, I think I drag this over. No, I don't know. Hell, here we go. New standard, cast concrete, cast in situ concrete. Then when I select one of these things, let's see what happens. Do I have to drag it onto it? Yeah. So let me just select some of these things and I'll start to add that cast concrete shader here. Wall, basic concrete. What's nice about this? What happened there? What's going on? Oh, okay. I see it rotated for some whatever reason. There we go. You can start to, first of all, I have groups here, so I can actually clean this list up and start to group things together, put them in lists, and then I can start to clean things up that way. Let's see what happens when I select this red stuff. Why is this red? Hmm. Hmm. Anyway, you can see that through between the model screen and then the multi-lister over here, you can start to uh, select and then start to assign materials to things. I don't know why you'd have a concrete roof there, but I'll just add one just for fun. Um, and on and on and on. Let's see here. Let me find this list. It looks like this is just running off the side of my screen just a bit. Okay, so there should be, here we go. Structural columns, basic framing, structural framing, all the way to columns. It looks like there's my waste paper baskets and my, yeah, great. That's fantastic. Steel columns, structural columns. Right. So I could go back to my library. Oop, sorry, that was the wrong button. Go back to my library. I could look through materials, metals. Let's see, bronze, brass. It's really tempting to like start adding materials willy-nilly. I recommend being, really sparing and making it so that the project isn't about seeing a bunch of materials, but rather is about. Here, let me just zoom in here. Try to anyway. But is about just making things look all right and not and stepping back every so often and saying, well, is this doing exactly what I wanted to do? I hope, right? There's core 10. Add some core 10 here, maybe. Right. I could, of course, render this anyway. It looks like have an offset here with my beams and my column heights. I would need to change that. I would need to offset it upwards a bit. So that it looks like this thing is actually sitting on top of it. I need to add beams here and there. Right. So again, I have some things I need to do in Revit to sort of clean this thing up. But what's nice about this again is, although I kept this trimmed, I want to end trim that, have the whole downtown area imported in. That would be nice. Um, Let me go to the library, materials, and let me just go with like a plastic, and I'll just do like a 3D wall, white glossy plastic. And I'll just add that to, let's see if I can add it and just change the, hey, what, site stuff. Here we go. I just want to find these generic model, content, generic model, roads, roads south, roads bridger. Right, I just wanted to find these massings of our neighbors. And right now they're like sort of clear and mirrored. I'm not sure why. But once I figure out which one of these is which, I could begin to add maybe just a really generic sort of shader to them, just so they don't stand out so much. Maybe. Oh, I'll just add that one. I don't know. I'm not sure why I can't find. These all look like they're expanded outward, so you can see everything. I'm not sure why I can't select these massings. I don't see anything that's locked. I don't say, but hmm. Yeah. But anyway, here's how you can begin to select everything, and then start to assign materials to them. And again, it's very much a learning curve, I think, for me anyway, because the way to sort of zoom in and out, there's keyboard shortcuts that help you with that, but it just feels like really sort of cumbersome to me, honestly. But you can select things over here, you can select things in the window, etc. What's nice about this, though, is that there's different ways you can do this. If I go back to the library, I can say vegetation and trees. Let's see, I can go to and find, see if there's anything that might be halfway appropriate here. Maybe I'll just add some conifers that look like they could be conifers, but I see those planted sometimes in different places around the valley. Let's see. I have to just sort of scroll for a while. I don't see, let's see, Spanish word for green. There's no verde. Okay. Eastern West Pine. Let's see. Sassafras. What would be maybe a good street tree? That's, I guess, the question. Junipers, no. Well, I'm not going to take too much longer here. Let me just try to find a decent. I'm just going to put in a tree.
Acacias are pretty good trees.
Which ones?
Acacias, but I don't think they have them in there.
Yeah. I'm just going to add a tree for right now, and well, don't don't uh, don't quote me on which tree to use here. Let's see. I just had one. Where'd it go? Start from the bottom. Let's see. Spruces, firs, and pines. Let's just do this. I'll just download one of these dudes here. And I can drag and drop and start adding trees. And you can add people as well, right? When I have a tree here, I believe there are settings for it. So I could tell it that it's younger, or that it's older and more mature. I can change the season, so I can go something much younger, let's say. I could change the season to summer or autumn, and the leaves start to change colors. Um, I can begin to play around with a variety of these things, right? So yeah, here you go. Here's how you can start to add some ambiance, start to dress things up, start to think about the streetscape, um, etc. It looks weird to see those, like, maybe I'll add it to summertime. We'll get some green leaves here. Let me just up that a little bit, make it a little taller. The question, I guess, is does it also, yeah, it starts to try to rotate them in different views if you start to add more. Um, you could always also mix this up by simply changing their age, and or changing, some of the other properties here, or adding different types of trees. Those are kind of large, on the large size. Maybe I bring that down a bit, etc. Right. So when you start to go in this library, you can start to add things like vegetation. There's furniture and other things that if you didn't want to add that in Revit, but you want to see it in one of your renderings. I mean, the objects, some of them are interesting and others are really dumb, clunky looking. Um, let's see, vegetation, there's people, there's characters, vehicles, etc. So you can begin to add people, animated humans. There's Michael, there's Sue, there's Michelle, I don't know, Chris, etc. I'm not so like, I'd rather just do that stuff in Photoshop afterwards with some silhouettes or something personally. Not my cup of tea to add like little animated humans to this. But anyway, you can start to then start to add, think about the ground plane, start to add different textures or shaders or patterns. Let's see here. I think our windows are automatically glass, but curtain panel system. Yeah, let's see. But I could always go to materials and look at different types of glass. There's clear glass, there's blue glass, reflective glass, there's mirrored glass. Let's go with reflective glass and see what happens when I do that. Reflective glass. It looks different. I'm not sure how reflective it is. It might have to do with um, also our render settings. So again, if I go up to my multi-lister and go up to ambiance, I can change some of these things, but I can also change my camera, my field of view, make a wider angle or zoomed in. Um, I can give clear clipping planes. I can make things parallel, like axons versus not. Let's see, what else? Um, Depth of field. So I have some options here, in other words. And when it comes to rendering, I don't have, for whatever reason, they haven't built in this capability with M4 Apple Silicon. But if you have the path tracer, that's the best one, right? So if you have a decent graphics card in your PC laptop, that path tracer is an option, and that gives you the best renderings. I'm just going to go with standard. Maybe I'll double check and look at Lumen. You can see the different rendering types, right? Standard rendering versus a Lumen rendering. That path tracer is the more resource heavy computationally, but also again, the trade-off is that it's also the best quality, right? Ray lighting mode, optimized reflections only or full. I can change the global illumination, make things darker or brighter, how far I see, etc. Right? So there's lots of things you can play around with in here. And I will say I can show you certain things in Twinmotion, but when you are trying to get it to do something, your best bet is simply to ask Google or ask YouTube and see if somebody's made a 5-minute YouTube video showing you exactly what you're trying to do and how to do it. Because that's typically what I do when you guys ask me questions. I'm not quite sure about or I don't remember. Um, so you can see this has a little bit of reflection in it now, for better or worse. I'm not so happy with it. What's interesting is that you can, I think it's in camera here, maybe. You can save your views. Oh no, I think that's let me just move my Zoom interface out of the way. I think that's over here. If you go to down here at the bottom, there's import, modeling, materials, populate. You can populate. If you wanted to make a forest of trees, you could do populate, and it'll start to paint randomly with trees and terrain, rocks, grasses, etc. Let's see, media. And I believe this is where you can start to set the camera views, start to save, right? Like it just saved this view, right? Um, for whatever reason. Let's see. Let me get into here. Oh, aha, here we are. And you can see that again, I don't know why these are red, but I'd want to change that over time. Or maybe I leave them red if that's what I'm really interested in doing. But again, we can go to the environment. We can change things like time of day. We can change the season. We can change how much overcast or clear the sky is. We can even tell it to rain. When we have vegetation in buildings, we can change the season to winter. It'll put snow on things. They'll change the color of the leaves, etc. here. So, for instance, again, I could do a set of studies and try to figure out exactly when the right stuff is, right, to get that perfect um, what do you say? The perfect angle of the sun popping through. Um, yeah, let's see. And of course, you can always add effects like um, kind of like what you do in Photoshop. You can sort of change the contrast. You can change how saturated or unsaturated things are, clarity, sharpness. Once I have something like this, I could actually re-render it. But you can see that I can always go back to these views as I start to change things around and see what the perspectives actually look like. So if I'm in here, for instance, man, it really is sensitive to that, my scroll wheel, my mouse, a little overly sensitive, honestly. So if I actually set myself up here for the very perfect view, I go to my camera, focal length. Let's zoom out a bit and see a little more. There we go. Look at that. Isn't that great? Or something like this, right? Um, I don't know. I don't know how good that is, but let's try. There we go. Again, I can hit this, save it. I can go back to this one and go back to this one. I can start to change things. The white balance, it's a little too cool. You can start to add a little bit of coloration. Again, I think this has to do with temperature, local exposure, how bright is too bright, how dark is too dark. So again, you can do some of these things as you're rendering these things. So this is the real-time render, but then I can go to render and I can say, where is it here? Image. I can go to image and let's see. I can tell it the width and the height, the output size, the type, and I can say, let's just render both of these. And let's get a high quality render. Let's see, format, details, tiled rendering, view set. And I believe there's an export tool. Then I can export these out when I have them set. Let's see, export to image. And I can tell it to use path tracer, lumen, or real time. Select all and start the export, right? And then I'll export some JPEGs. I guess I'll just do that to my desktop right now, right? And that then it'll actually start to bounce. You saw, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but when I was inside, you saw like it was kind of pixelated. The quality was compromised because it's just rendering these things in real time. But once you actually do these exports, that's when you actually get the final quality renderings. You can see it only has 5 seconds left. It's estimating. Okay, it's gone back up to 6, and now it says 0. So that's kind of funny. But um, and then here are those PNGs, and you can see that again, that aliasing and stuff like that is gone. You start to get higher quality renders. So that's again, just a crash course really quickly to whet your appetite for Twinmotion. I can show you more tomorrow in the morning time if you're interested in this. I'm recording these things and I post them. So I'll post this one before we take off for our field trip this afternoon. But um, this is a good place to pause. And I'm just going to stop recording. Let's see here if I can figure out how. Stop recording. Here we go.